slice me open and see what colors I bleed.
Almost 2 million boys are born in the United States each year, and one of the first big decisions they have to make is whether to choose their own favorite sports team or to choose their dad's favorite team. And I picked the second option. I love Georgia Tech football. During the fall, it takes up almost all of my mental space, and even during the off season, I am constantly following the team. And today I wanted to talk about that through two different parts. The first being my upbringing and my own experience with the team. And then second, I wanted to talk about some of the intangible qualities that Georgia Tech has as a football program and why Georgia Tech fans love those things and buy into them, but also why college football fans in general should appreciate Georgia Tech football for what it is. I was brought into this world in 1999, and ever since then, I've always been a huge Georgia Tech fan. And one of the first stories that I have related to Georgia Tech was how when I was a little kid, I had a really hard time sitting still and looking at the camera while I got my picture taken. At the time, Georgia Tech had a receiver named Kelly Campbell, who was my first ever favorite football player. And if you don't know about Kelly Campbell, he was kind of like Eric Singleton. He was an undersized, speedy, deep threat kind of receiver, except he was a bit of a better player, let's just be honest. But anyways, to get me to sit still, my parents would ask me, "Benny, what does Kelly Campbell do?" And I'd throw my arms up in the air like it's a touchdown. And you can see right here, I was putting my hands up. Didn't know you needed to use two at the time, but the point remains, Georgia Tech football was ingrained in me at a very young age. So with all that being said, I was a huge Tech fan growing up and as a little kid, but that really changed in the 5th grade when I started playing football and I got a lot more invested into it. And interesting enough, I was in the 5th grade in 2009, which every Georgia Tech fan should know or remember that this was one of the coolest years in program history. The team had a great year and there were so many iconic players too. And ever since then, I've had the bug when it comes to Georgia Tech football. Through all the highs and all the lows, I've been absolutely hooked and I love this football team. So this leads me into the second part of this video where I'm going to talk about what makes Georgia Tech such a special football program. As in, what really comprises the essence of the team. And Tech has always been a little bit different compared to other major college programs, namely in the fact that it's a very well-regarded academic institution, but also in the fact that an emphasis is really put on the players turning out to be great people and not just great football players. And this sort of tradition was really started by Coach Bobby Dodd when he was coaching during the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And you see, Coach Dodd, he really revolutionized the role that is known as a player's coach. And he really did this through two different means. The first was he was really critical about his players doing well in school and graduating. And the second was he didn't make practices hard for the sake of them being hard. He thought it was more important that his teams practiced well. So these things over the years have really led to Georgia Tech becoming known as a program with a very strong culture. And these things are most noticeable now under Coach Brent Key. When any outside media outlet talks about Georgia Tech, the first thing they always bring up is the culture, the kind of culture that Brent Key has established and how it's a really good one and how it's helping us win football games. And on my own, I've come up with 3 virtues that you can find within Georgia Tech football that are really great and ones that you can apply in your own life as well. Those virtues are never backing down, responding to adversity, and being tough. And for the first one, Georgia Tech has always risen to the occasion when playing really good competition. They never get scared and always seem to play their best in the big moments. You think about the way that Brent Key's teams have played against Georgia. You think about the 2024 Miami game. You think about beating Drake May in North Carolina in 2023. All of these moments really just signify that this is a team that is not scared, and we should all really embody that as well when it comes to big moments in our lives. And for the second point, responding to adversity, Brant Key's teams have always played extremely well after a loss, even embarrassing ones. And the biggest example of this is how in 2023, coming off of a very Jeff Collins-esque loss to Bowling Green, Georgia Tech went on the road and took down undefeated Miami. And they've really just been able to rally themselves when they've gone down. And I think that's really awesome. It's one of the things I love about this team. It's one of the things that makes me feel confident after this loss to NC State as well. And that leads me to the third point that I wanted to talk about, which is being tough. And that is embodied through Georgia Tech's play style. We like to run the ball, we like to be physical, we like to own the lines of scrimmage, but it also manifests itself in how the players go about playing. And the biggest example is Haynes King playing through so many injuries and pain. You remember just last year, he played a couple games with basically one arm. But I also wanted to highlight both Malik Rutherford and Jamal Haynes. Those are guys that have played through a lot of injuries as well. And I hope when it's all said and done, those guys get talked about as players who really help change the culture and help change the direction of the program for Georgia Tech. I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough. And even though they're having quieter years, those guys are awesome and they're legends in my mind. So that concludes today's video. And if you're a Georgia Tech fan, let me know in the comments about when you became a fan and why and how. And just some of your favorite moments too. I always love hearing about how people really came to love this team. And let me know who your favorite player of all time is too. Anyways, y'all, I really appreciate it as always, and I hope you have a great week. Go Jackets. To hell with Georgia. Deuces.